بسم الله. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. نويت التعلم التعليم وتذكر التذكير والنفع والانتفاع والإفادة والاستفادة والحث على التمسك بكتاب الله وسنة رسول الله والدعاء إلى الهدى والدلالة على الخير ابتغاء وجه الله ومرضاته وقربه وثوابه سبحانه وتعالى. اللهم صل وسلم على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما. أما بعد، فالسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Alhamdulillah, we continue from where we left off last week. And our last discussion, we started speaking about nafaqah. And we started saying on whom is nafaqah wajib. And for whom nafaqah is wajib. So when it comes to nafaqah, nafaqah is basically the financial maintenance of an individual, be it our children, be it our parents. What must we spend for them? What must we see to in terms of finances? So many things cost money. Food costs money, clothing costs money, and so on. So who's responsible to pay for these things and to see that these things are taken care of? Now, so our scholars generally, when a person is born, when a child is born, then the nafaqah becomes wajib upon his ascendants. His ascendants are his parents, his father, his mother, and so on. But whom specifically of his ascendants? His closest male ascendant first. His closest male ascendant. So his closest male ascendant is his father. This is on condition that his father has over and above his needs for the day. Alright, so the father has enough to see to himself. He perhaps has enough to see to his wife for the day. He has over and above that. Then whom? Then if he has over and above that, then the extra that he has that's above his own needs and his wife's needs must now go to his young daughter or his young son. And this is also on condition that the young daughter or young son has no wealth of their own, because perhaps they could have inherited money from somebody. They could have inherited money, and if they don't have any money, which is the general case, a child is generally born without any wealth, then in that case, then the nafaqah of the child, the spending of the child, who sees to the child, the financial maintenance of the child, the father. The father is first in line if the father can afford to look after the maintenance. After the father, then it is the grandfathers from both the mother side and father side, equally 50-50. So if the maintenance of the child, for example, comes to 5,000 rand for the month, and both grandfathers are alive, but maybe the father is passed on, the father had passed on, but the grandfathers are alive. Or the father has he can't work, he can't afford, he doesn't have any money, so who must look after? The two grandfathers. If it's 5,000 rand for the child, so then they must split it 2,500 rand, 2,500 rand. Right? Then let's say there's no grandfathers, then who's next in line? Now we look to the females of the ascendants, because obviously there will be no descendants, there will be no children from this child, there will only be ascendants. So the closest female ascendant would be the mother. So the mother now becomes responsible. And if the mother Either she can afford, so if she can afford to look after the child, then it is wajib. Now she becomes the next in line. She must now look after the child. But let's say the mother isn't working, but the mother can work, meaning she has the ability. She can find a job which is suitable. And if she works, she can support the child. Then it actually becomes wajib upon now the mother. This is obviously when we say there's no father and there's no grandfathers. Then the next in line now is the mother, if the mother is able to work. If the mother is not able to work, right, or she is working, but she still with her working, she cannot afford to look after the child, then who comes next in line? The grandmothers. The grandmothers now are next in line. Again, equally split amongst the grandmothers if they are both able. If only one of them are able, if only one of them is able, and then that one grandmother would look after the child, the financial maintenance. It could be that the one grandmother, mashallah, she is wealthy. The other grandmother isn't. The other grandmother is poor. All right? And she can't work. The other grandmother can't work or anything like that. Then the responsibility falls solely on the one of the grandmothers, be it the grandmother from the mother's side or be it the grandmother from the father's side. Now, that's in terms of the parents. In terms of what happens if you have parents now that's old already and they cannot see to their own financial needs. They cannot see to their own needs. So now, and obviously they don't have any ascendants. They don't have any ascendants. So now who takes preference in terms of who must look after the parents? The mother or the father? It is the children. The closest children, those who are closest, regardless of the gender. Regardless of their gender. So if they are sons and daughters, then it's the responsibility of the sons and the daughters to look after the parents, and they will split it. There's difference of opinion in terms of how do they split it between the males and the females. If there's one son and one daughter, some of our scholars say they will split it 50-50, and some of the scholars say no, they will split it according to their share of inheritance, according to the ratio of their inheritance. So when it comes to sons and daughters, we know that the sons get double the share of the daughters. So let's say the nafaqah of the parents, maybe both parents have to be made nafaqah of. The mother and the father needs nafaqah. And the nafaqah for the month is approximately 10,000 rand. So if there's just one son and one daughter, so the one opinion says they will split it equally, 5,000 rand, 5,000 rand. The other opinion says no, they won't split it equally, but rather the son will have to give double the amount that the daughter gives. So if it's 10,000 rand, the son will give 6,667 rand, and the daughter will give 3,333 rand. Double the share of the daughter. That is the difference of opinion that is there within the Shafi'i madhab. The siblings will have to come to an agreement. Maybe they'll come to the same. Sometimes what happens is the daughters earn much more than the sons, maybe. So in that case, they can have an agreement 50-50, you know. But maybe if it's in a different scenario whereby maybe the sons are maybe earning much more and they, mashallah, they have lots of wealth and so forth, and then they can have an agreement, double, single, where the sons will provide double the amount of the daughters. In the case of these being a dispute, they can't come to an agreement, then they will have to go to the imam or to the qadi to try and settle their disagreement. Now, so when does the nafaqah become wajib? How do I know my parents must make the nafaqah or my child must make the nafaqah? So our scholars say that the nafaqah of the parents, for example, becomes wajib if they are considered to be poor. If they are considered to be poor, meaning they don't have finance. And remember, it's day by day. Every day is a new day. We look at day by day. Do you have enough needs to suffice you for the day? So my parents don't have enough to suffice them for the day. So then I must provide the nafaqah for that day. I don't have to provide the nafaqah for 1 year or for 2 years, one time. No, day by day. Now, tomorrow comes again. Or maybe my parents are working. My father is working. But his nafaqah, the amount that he gets from his earnings is only enough to last him half of the month for his needs. The other half of the month is, so now day by day for the first half, I see, okay, my father has enough, my father has enough. When it comes to the second half of the month, from the 16th, for example, he doesn't have any more. Now it's my responsibility to look after him from the 16th till the end of the month until he gets paid again. Right? And then when he gets paid again, maybe it only again lasts him half of the month. Then from after that, I need to support him. Now, but let's say my father or my mother, in that case, they are poor, they don't have money to suffice themselves. However, they can work. My father, for example, can work if he wants to work, but he chooses to stay at home. Can I tell my father, no, you must go and work? I'm not going to support you, you must go and work? No, I can't do that. It is wajib for me to look after my father, even if he chooses not to work. However, if he has actual money, if he has money in the bank, for example, but he says, no, I don't want to use from my money, you must see to me, then unfortunately, from the Sharia perspective, we're going to say, no, it is not wajib on the child to then look after the father or the mother in that case. Why? Because they do have of their own wealth that they can spend. Yes, from a point of view of being good to your parents and so forth, is great reward. One of the greatest is to honor your parents. So if your parents do not want to spend from their own wealth and they would like you to spend, and you can do so, then Bismillah, do so. However, are we going to say it's wajib if they do have their own money? We're going to say no, it is not. It is not wajib. It is not wajib now. Right. Then in addition, when it comes to one's father, we said that if your father wants to get married, he doesn't have money to get married. Alright, he doesn't have money to get, he can't even support himself. You must support him. But now he wants to get married. But now to get married, you need money. You need to make nafaqah. So now, who must make nafaqah if he gets married? Who must pay for the dowry, for example, and who must make nafaqah of the wife? Who must make nafaqah of the wife? It is also the children's responsibility to make nafaqah of the wife of the father, even though it's not their mother. Even though it is not their mother. This is to call i'faf, to make i'faf of your father. What does it mean? To keep your father chaste is wajib. Right? To keep your father chaste is wajib. So what does that mean? Meaning to facilitate for him to get married and to stay married. That is wajib. As opposed to your children, it is not wajib to make the nafaqah of your daughter-in-law. As opposed to your stepmother. Your daughter-in-law is not wajib, as opposed to your mother, your stepmother. If your father cannot look after her, then it is your responsibility to make her nafaqah as well, meaning the child's responsibility. Be it the sons and the daughters, whatever the case may be now. When it comes to children, however, when must you make the nafaqah of your children? If they are poor, they don't have wealth of their own, and they are unable to find suitable work. They are unable to work or find suitable work. So those are the two main things. So as long as you have children, so generally when your children are young, they're not going to have money. Or if they're not going to have money. So if they don't have money, then it is wajib for you to look after them. And after, obviously at that age, they're not able to find suitable work. You have a child of 1 year old, 2 years old, 3 years, 4, 5, 6. They're not able to find suitable work and they don't have money. So you don't have to make their nafaqah. However, if they do have money, they inherited money, for example. All right, maybe their mother passed away and their mother was wealthy and the mother left them a lot of wealth. Do you have to use from your own wealth to look after them? Do you have to use from your own wealth to look after them? No. You are responsible to see that their wealth is used in a way which benefits them. So when you buy their food and their clothing, you can use from their own wealth. We're not saying this is encouraged to do. We're just saying what is permissible to do. Yes, you can use from their own wealth to see to their own needs. But once their wealth is used up, then whose responsibility does it fall on now to? It falls onto the parent again. It falls onto the parent now. However, if your children are big, They don't have wealth, but they are able to work. They are able to find suitable work. Can I tell them you must go and work? Our scholars say yes, you can tell them you don't have to make the nafaqah. You can now force them to go and work, as opposed to your parents. Your parents you cannot force to work, even if they are able. Your son now, or your daughter, if they are able to find suitable work, then you can force them to go and work, such that they must see to their own nafaqah, and you don't have to see to their nafaqah. You don't have to see to their finance, their financial needs. Now, so those are basically the conditions. However, our scholars do make an exception when it comes to your children. If your children are learning deen, such that they are like fulfilling a fard kifaya, a communal obligation, because there must be somebody in the community that is learning deen. So they're learning things which the community needs, and it's hoped that they will benefit the community with their knowledge. Then some of our scholars within the Shafi'i madhab say that what? It is still wajib to make their nafaqah because of deen, because of them studying deen and learning the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which is hope that they're going to benefit people from this deen with their knowledge. And because of them engaging, them being busy with the studies of deen, they are unable to work. Had they not been busy with studies, they would have been able to work. But because they're busy with a fard kifaya, they're busy with a communal obligation, and that's why they cannot go out and go and work to earn. Then they say it is still the responsibility of the parents or of the father to look after the child, to look after the son, even though he might be already mukallaf, he might be baligh and so forth. It is still the responsibility in that case of the parent to look after the child. Now, then as well, that's just in terms of human beings. Then if you, like we mentioned, if you have animals and so forth, then you have to see to the needs of the animals as well. You can't have a cat and you just let the cat, fend for itself. You have no, if you take ownership of the cat, then you are responsible for that cat. If you you have a dog, for example, you have a dog for as a watchdog, you have a dog for a legitimate purpose, for example, then it's your responsibility to see that the dog is fed properly. Now, all those things now become wajib upon the owner. Now, then, that's in terms of generally in terms of family. What about the wife? When does the nafaqah of the wife become wajib? So our author says here, وَنَفَقَةُ الزَّوْجَةِ الْمُمَكِّنَةِ مِنْ نَفْسِهَا وَاجِبَةٌ. The nafaqah of the wife who avails herself towards her husband. So if a man gets married to a lady and she avails herself to her husband, meaning her husband, because we know that when a couple gets married, the wife's primary right is the right of nafaqah, maintenance, seeing to her financial needs. And the primary right of the husband is for him to take enjoyment, physical enjoyment from his wife. Now, so him to fulfill his sexual desires. So the wife, she's entitled to her nafaqah when she gets married, when she avails herself to her husband, meaning her husband is able to take sexual pleasure from his wife. But if she refuses the husband, she denies the husband, then she is not entitled she's not entitled to her nafaqah. She's not entitled to her nafaqah now. So they say, what is the nafaqah? وَهِيَ مُقَدَّرَةٌ. When it comes to your family, the nafaqah of my parents and the nafaqah of my children, the nafaqah that I have to make for them is not set out. It's not a specific amount. We can't say it's 2,000 rand, it's 3,000. It's according to their needs. When it comes to food, according to what satiates them. No, not that they must be overfilled. And not that you might just give them such a little that they might just be able to go on. No, that which is, alhamdulillah, they are satisfied in terms of food and in terms of clothing and so forth. Don't have to provide extra, not just the so little that it's just enough for them to make it to the next meal, basically. They basically just struggling to make it to the next meal. No, there must be how you normally eat, not till we full, but till we are satisfied. Now, that is uh, that is when it comes to your family. But when it comes to your wife, then the nafaqah is set out. The nafaqah is set. We don't look at, so what we mean here is, maybe today she doesn't feel like she needs to eat. She feels like, or maybe she was invited to go and eat out, or maybe somebody sent her a meal, and she ate from that meal. Is it your responsibility still to provide nafaqah for that day, food for that day? Yes, it's still your responsibility. Why? Because the nafaqah is set out, it is fixed. It is based on a contract, a marital contract. When it comes to your family, it's not based on a contract. When it comes to your wife, it's based on a contract. So therefore, she's entitled to it, whether she gets or whether she doesn't get. Sorry, whether she is hungry or whether she's not hungry, doesn't matter. Whether somebody else provided for her food or not, maybe a neighbor sent over food, or maybe she was invited to a wedding and she, with your permission, she went to the wedding and so forth, and she ate there, or you went with her to yes, you both went to the wedding, you ate, mashallah, ate nice biryani, whatever the case may be. Afterwards, she comes home, she says, where's my nafaqah? Right? She's still entitled to a nafaqah for the day. Right? Now, so the nafaqah of the wife is muqaddara, it is set out. Now, but it is set out according to the husband. So, in kana zawj musiran famuddan. So our scholars say when it comes to the primary form of nafaqah is food. So when it comes to food, our scholars say if the husband is considered rich, what does it mean rich? He has over and above his needs till the Umar al-Ghalib, till the general lifespan of a person. He has over and above his needs from his age, current age, till he reaches an age that is ghaliban, generally, or most probably he will live till. So our scholars, what is the age that most probably a person will live till? Is 60 years age, 60 years of age. Alright? Most people, alhamdulillah, they will reach 60 years of age. A person dies before 60, it's considered they died a bit early. But if they died at 60, alhamdulillah, they lived a full life, inshallah. So until 60 years of age, does he have his needs to suffice him till then? If he has over and above his needs that suffices him till he's 60 years of age, he has over and above that, then he's considered to be rich. And if he's considered to be rich, then he must give 2 muds of food, of the staple food of that city every day. The staple food. What's the staple food? We would say, yeah, for example, when it comes to the mud, it's basically the fidya amounts. When we see Ramadan, we get the fidya and the fitra amounts. The old people pay a fidya for every day that they don't fast. That fidya amount there, for the old people that cannot fast, that fidya amount, that is 1 mud. So what do we say? A rich man must give his wife at least 2 muds every day of the staple food of that place. Now, 2 muds. That is only in terms of so if it's rice, that means he must provide with 2 muds of rice. If he is poor, he doesn't have enough to last him till he's 60 years of age, then he's considered poor. And in this definition, most of the men are perhaps considered poor. Doesn't mean that they don't have to provide any nafaqah. No, they must still provide nafaqah. What's the nafaqah for the wife if he is considered poor? 1 mud of rice every day. 1 fidya. Again, the fidya amounts that we see there in the Ramadan, that amount here, it's called a mud. That amounts to a mud that he must provide with her every day. And we said it's about 750 grams of rice. That's just rice. Then you have the things that follow on from the food, and that is udam. وَيَجِبُ مِنَ الْأُدَمِ وَالْكِسَمِ وَيَجِبُ لَهَا الْأُدَمِ. What is also wajib is condiments. Things that are eaten with the rice. You know, we don't just provide rice. You can't expect a lady just to eat rice. So, meaning the spices that come with it, maybe some Arabs would say sambal, the avaslai, whatever the case may be. Whatever she needs of those things that generally is eaten with the rice, acha, for example. That's also an example of udam. Alright? So those things must also become wajib according to what is customary to provide the lady. Alright? And our scholars also talk about meat, for example, how often it is, what is the custom in terms of meat, what's the custom in terms of chicken, for example, fish, and so on. So that also becomes wajib according to what is customary within our society to provide a lady. Even when it comes to coffee, if she's somebody who's used to drinking coffee, then our scholars say then it is wajib to provide her coffee or provide her tea, for example. We can't just say no, you must drink water. All right, according to the custom. If it's customary to provide juice, then to provide juice and so on. Now, so those things are wajib in terms of. Then also is wajib. Our scholars in their time they would speak about to provide a lamp for the night time. So in our context, we would say electricity, right? To provide, to make sure that she has lights, to do things for the day, for when it's nighttime and so forth. We can't just put her in a house and say, no, you go, you must see to the electricity and everything. No, we need to provide those things. Those things are generally considered wajib. It's considered a need. Electricity in our time is considered a need. Now, then also in addition to that, what is wajib is clothing. We must provide clothing. And clothing is wajib, our scholars say twice a year. Clothing is wajib twice a year. Even though sometimes what happens is a lady reaches a certain age, whereby now she doesn't, her body now stays the same. She doesn't need new clothing. So she's wearing the same clothing for 2-3 years. Alright? Our scholars say it's still wajib to provide her a set of clothing for the summer and a set of clothing for the winter. Alright? A set of clothing for the summer and a set of clothing. Because why? The summer clothing is going to differ to the winter clothing. Alright? In the winter clothing, there's extra stuff, a jacket, whatever the case may be. Alright? So a set of clothing for the summer, a set of clothing for the winter, that is wajib, even though she might have. She doesn't need anymore. Unless she tells you, it's fine, I forgo my right, then it's fine. If she forgoes her right, then alhamdulillah, you don't have to worry. But if she still wants a set of clothing, then yes, it is wajib to provide that set of clothing now. And whatever is not just the thawb, the underwear, everything that is generally that a lady generally wears, it is the responsibility of the man to provide that now. Then also in addition to that, it is wajib to provide a bed, obviously, to provide something to sleep on, to provide eating utensils for her, to provide the utensils, whatever she needs to cook in, and so on. Those things are all wajib. A toothbrush, a brush for her hair. So basically toiletries also is wajib. Toiletries are wajib. Soap, shampoo, all those things become wajib. The things that she needs for when she has hayd, that is all wajib upon the man. Now, that's all wajib upon the man. Obviously, when we say the condiments also, that will include the oil and so forth. We need cooking oil, you need butter, whatever the case may be. All those things according to the custom, that is all wajib. Now, if the man is poor, like we said, he only provides one mud. If he is mutawassit, if he is considered to be in between, he's not rich and he's not poor. How is he on the middle level? Our scholars say if he has over and above his needs till he reaches the age of 60, but the amount that he has over and above his needs till he reaches age of 60 is less than 2 muds. So what is the cost of 2 muds if we the fidya amounts that we mentioned. Uh, what is the fidya amounts that we mentioned? Okay, let's take the rice amounts. So if he takes 1.5 kilos of rice, so he owns 1.5 kilos of rice or more. That is over and above his needs for himself till he reaches the age of 60. So let's say he needs till he reaches the age of 60. He needs 500,000 rand, just for example. So he has the 500,000 rand, and over and above that, he owns 1.5 kilos of rice. Oh, sorry, less than 1.5 kilos of rice. He owns a kilo of rice. Then he's considered to be mutawassit. Then he's considered to be mutawassit. If he owns 2 kilos of rice and more, then he's considered to be rich. If he owns a kilo of rice, for example, then he's not considered to be rich, he's considered to be middle level. And what must he provide? If he's on the middle level, he must provide 1.5 muds. He must provide 1.5 muds of rice. So that would be 750 times 1.5. 750 grams of rice times 1.5. That's how much rice he must provide. And then everything else in terms of udam, that will be in accordance to somebody on that level. What does his financial ability allow for? Then it is wajib to give ownership of these things to your wife. So when it comes to food, clothing, the brush, the eating utensils, the bed, our scholars say you must give ownership of that to your wife. This was something that Ajib when we learned this. Like generally we think that the bed, belongs to the husband, the wife. You can just sleep on the bed. Right? Our scholars say no. When it comes to these, the duvet and all those things, you make them leak. The wife must become the owner of it. The wife becomes the owner of it now. Until that is not something that it's repeated every year and so forth. No, until it becomes worn out, not suitable anymore. That's when you replace it. That's when you replace it now. And then also, if the lady is somebody she grew up with assistance, somebody to she grew up with a domestic, for example, that used to, help her in the house and whatever the case may be. She never used to, maybe because certain families, maybe a very wealthy family, and it's in that family, in their generations, it's maybe the ladies, they don't do house chores. That happens sometimes. Maybe you come from a royalty, for example. And if you're in a house of royalty, maybe the females don't do chores. They pay people to do those things. And that's what the lady is used to. Then it becomes wajib now on the husband, that's part of the nafaqah of his wife, to provide a domestic worker, for example, that assists her, someone that makes her khidmah, that does services for her, that assists her and so forth. That now also becomes wajib. Now, however, our scholars say maybe she is not used to that. In the house that she grew up, everyone saw to themselves. But when she got married, maybe her first husband, mashallah, he used to provide, they used to have, I don't know how many domestic workers and so forth. Now, afterwards, that husband passes away or divorces her. Now she gets married again. Now she's maybe used to a domestic, somebody to assist her in the house. But that's not how she grew up in a father's home. That's just she became used to because of her first husband. Is it now wajib upon the second husband to provide? Our scholars say no. It's not wajib upon the second husband to match the first husband. No, that is only if in terms of her home that she grew up in. Did she make her own khidmah? Did she, do her own chores? Or did she have the assistant? Did the father provide an assistant for her for that now? So we look at that now. If the husband, he becomes unable to provide nafaqah, he becomes poor and he cannot provide nafaqah, he's not providing nafaqah, then فَلَهَا الصَّبْرُ. Then the lady has two options. Either she can make sabr with her husband. She can make sabr with her husband, right? And she can tell the husband, it's fine, don't worry, I will see to things, you don't have to worry. Until you you can afford, then you can make nafaqah again. Or she can decide, no, she's not going to have sabr. And she can go to the qadi or the hakim and request a fasq, request an annulment of the marriage. That if the husband is poor, he's not providing nafaqah. He's not providing these things which are wajib. Then the qadi will investigate and he will give the husband 3 days to start making nafaqah again. If after 3 days the husband is still not providing nafaqah, then the qadi will grant the fasq. He will grant the annulment. He will grant the annulment of the marriage. But this is only in relation to future nafaqah, meaning the nafaqah of the day and the nafaqah of tomorrow, the nafaqah. But as for maybe the husband for the past year didn't make nafaqah. For the whole year he didn't make nafaqah. But now he's providing nafaqah. The wife is demanding, no, you owe me from the nafaqah of the year that passed, but now he started providing nafaqah. Can she request a fasq? No, the qadi will not grant her a fasq. She cannot request a fasq for nafaqah which had passed. Yes, she's still entitled to receive. It's a debt upon the husband. It's a debt upon the husband. So she's entitled to it if the husband didn't make nafaqah of the past year. That's a debt upon the husband. He must pay it. But can she get an annulment on account of that? No. She cannot get an annulment on account of past nafaqah. She can only get an annulment on account of future nafaqah. So meaning the husband is not making nafaqah, she goes to the qadi, then the qadi will check for 3 days. So that's future. The 3 days that passed, didn't provide nafaqah. Now the hakim will give the fasq. He will give the annulment. Similarly, a lady also has the right to make fasq, to request a fasq, an annulment from the hakim, if the husband doesn't pay the mahr, but before the marriage is consummated, before they have intercourse. So before they have intercourse, the husband did not give the dowry. And the dowry is something which is a current, it was not a deferred dowry. Meaning they didn't have an agreement that after 2 years, you're going to start in the marital contract, right? Or the agreed upon mahr, and it was mentioned in the nikah, upon the mahr which was agreed upon. And what was the agreed upon mahr? That after 2 years, you start paying, you will give the mahr. In that case, no, she cannot request a fasq on account of a mahr which is mu'ajjal, which is deferred. But if the mahr is due, there was no agreement of a deferred mahr, but the husband, in our custom, we think, no, the husband has to give it on the wedding day. No, he doesn't have to give it on the wedding day. So they get married. There was no mention of a deferred mahr. So that means the mahr is due now. But they got married already. Is the marriage valid? Yes, the marriage is valid. The wife can now refuse for the husband to have physical intimacy with her until he pays the mahr. The husband is not paying the mahr, and they're not having intimacy. They did not yet consummate the marriage. The wife has the right to request a fasq. The wife has the right to request a fasq, an annulment. But if they consummated the marriage, obviously with her permission, they consummated the marriage, and then afterwards he still doesn't provide the mahr, can she go to the qadi, the hakim, and request a fasq? No, she cannot go to the qadi and request a fasq on account of the mahr. Obviously, if the husband is not making nafaqah, then she can request a fasq on account of the nafaqah, but not on account of the mahr, not on account of the dowry. No. So that concludes the discussion with regard to nafaqah. Quickly, we just want to mention the last topic is the topic on custody. So when a man, generally what happens, obviously the children stays with the mother and the father if they are still married. But when the mother and the father get divorced and then there is a separation. So now comes to the question comes, who gets custody of the child? And when we talk about custody, who takes the responsibility and who takes the responsibility to look after the child, because the child can't take care of himself. And this is not for a child, even for the own parent. If your parent becomes majnoon, or have a serious case of dementia where they cannot look after themselves anymore, then also it's a question of who has the right to look after. Who has the right to look after the parent, who has the right to look after the child. So this initially is a right. So when it comes to a right, it is your prerogative to say, no, it's fine, I don't want to exercise my right. I will pass it over to the next person. But anyway, who is most entitled to look after the children? So if it's a child that's not yet mumayyiz, that's not yet basically the child can discern between good and bad, can eat on its own, drink on its own, and stingy on its own. The child needs to be taken care of. Child of 1 year old, 2 years old, 3 years old, and so forth. So who has more right? When there's separation, the mother. The mother is most entitled to look after them. After the mother, it is the mothers of the mother, meaning the grandmothers and the great grandmothers, whoever is closest, and whichever grandmother is considered an heir of the child. So the grandmothers who are considered heirs of the child, they are most entitled. So the mother, then the mother's mother, all right, because the mother's mother is an heir of the child, and then the mother's mother, and so on. They are all considered heirs of the child, so they are most entitled. They have more preference than the father even. They are more entitled than even the father. After them, then it's only the father. Then it's the father is next in line. He has now the most right in terms of custody, looking after the child. Why do mothers? Because mothers are generally more free and they have more compassion when it comes to looking after young children. Men are working and they're more hard and so forth. Sometimes that's not always the best suitable for the child. Now, so then we said then the father, then the grandfathers that are considered heirs. Then the grandfathers, who's not each grandfather is considered an heir. Only the grandfathers who are considered heirs, they are entitled to look after the child. And then afterwards, then it will go, for example, to brothers, to sisters and brothers and so forth. But we won't go into that detail now. So that is the main sequence. First the mother, then the grandmothers, then the father, then the grandfathers who are heirs. Now, however, let's say a man of 50 meets up in an accident. He now can't look after himself any longer. So who's more entitled? If he is married to somebody that can have intercourse with him, then the wife is more entitled. And the opposite is also true. If the lady becomes mentally disabled, for example, she cannot look after herself, and there is a husband who has the ability to have intercourse with her, then he is more entitled to look after the wife. The next in line would be the daughter. The next in line would be the daughter, even though there might be a mother. Maybe there's the 50-year-old has a mother of 75. She's still healthy and whatever the case may be. So who takes preference? The daughter or the mother of 75? The daughter first, and then the mother of 75. Right? So that is the sequence. The daughter. So this, when you are most entitled to, we said here, this is a right, meaning I have the ability to pass it over. So for example, there was a slide, we said it's the mother first, then the grandmothers from the mother side, who are heirs. After that, then it's the father. After the father, then it's the grandmothers from the father side. Not grandfathers, the grandmothers from the the father's side. So technically the father comes before his own mother. So if I have a daughter, and let's say now I have the right of custody. The custody falls in I can pass it over to my mother. I can pass it over. I say, no, I'm working. I can't look after the child. I don't have that. But my mother is free. My mother is willing to do it. So now I pass it over to my mother. Can I do that? Yes, it is permissible. The main thing when it comes to the issue of custody is that the person who's responsible for the nafaqah must see to it that somebody looks after that child. It's still his responsibility to see to the child that, but who has the most right? The mother has the most right. So I get if there's a separation between a husband and wife, the husband can't tell his wife, I don't want you to look after the child. If she meets the criteria, then she's most entitled. Nobody can deny her. All right? Nobody can deny. So she has the right to say, no, it's fine. I'll pass it over to my mother. But the husband doesn't have the right, or not the husband any longer. The father doesn't have the right to say no. Even though it's still the father's responsibility to make nafaqah. All right? So the children are staying with the mother. Who must make nafaqah of the child? The father. The father must make the nafaqah. Now, and if something is a right, and it's something that can be charged for, then the mother has the right to charge for it as well. Right? To look after children is something that you can pay people to do, right? And therefore, the mother can technically charge to look after her own children. To look after her own children. However, if the father can't find somebody who's willing to do it for free, then the mother, if she insists that she's going to charge, then she loses her right. I'll make an example. You have a husband. The wife is insisting that she wants to charge to look after the children. So she has the right to do so. But the mother of the father, sorry, which is the grandmother. The grandmother is willing to do it for free. Then we'll say no, the children must go to the grandmother. The wife, the mother, sorry, loses her right. Why? Because she's insisting upon a payment. She wants a payment for it. But nobody is willing to do it. Only the mother is willing to do it. And she wants to charge. Then it's wajib for the father to pay her. It's wajib now for the father to pay to look after the children. Then there are conditions. Time for what time is Aisha? Can we just go 5 minutes of because this is the end of the discussion, inshallah. There are conditions to be eligible to look after a child. First is that you must have aql. So if a person is majnoon, insane, or they're too young, they don't have aql, they cannot have custody of somebody else. Because they can't even look after themselves, how can they look after somebody else? The second one is that they must be free, so slaves do not get the right of custody. Number 3, deen. If the child is Muslim and one of the parents are non-Muslim and one of the parents are Muslim, then obviously the parent who is Muslim has the right. The parent who is non-Muslim does not have the right of custody. Number 4 and 5, ifan amana. Basically, to be somebody who is trustworthy and somebody who practices their religion. So they can both be Muslim, but one is a fasiq, one is a perpetual sinner. One of the parents, for example, don't make salah. So if the mother, for example, does not make salah, then she loses her right of custody. All right, because what's going to happen to the deen of the child? If you're going to leave the child in the hands of somebody who's not practicing their religion. So if the person is a fasiq, is a perpetual, and the one, for example, like we said, does not make salah, the other one makes salah, then the one who makes salah, they will have the right of custody. Number 6 is iqamah, residency. So if any of the parents travel, for example, be it on a holiday for business, then the other parent will have the right of custody. except if the father travels, and is relocating, then he is most entitled that the child travels with him, right? Out of preservation of the nasab, out of preservation of the lineage of that child. So if the father relocates, then he has most right. It's not a must. We're just saying who has the most right. He can say, no, it's fine. I want the child to stay, right? Stay with her mother. But if he wants, he has the right just to say, no, the child must move with him when he relocates. But if he's just traveling for business, then the mother maintains her right of custody. Similarly, if the wife travels and relocates, then again, the child stays with the father. The father has the most right. شرط سابع الخلو من زوج. One of the conditions for the ladies to have a right of custody, be it the mother, be it the grandmother, whoever the case may be, is that they either must not be married, or they can be married, but they must be married to somebody who has somewhere in the line a right of custody. They must be married to somebody who has a right of custody. So if the wife, the mother remarries, so initially when she got divorced, she had the right of custody. Then she got married. When she got married, she lost her right of custody. The children can stay with her still and a new husband if her new husband and her ex-husband, who is the father, they agree. They say, no, it's fine. The wife can, the children can still stay with, then it's fine. However, if any of them say no, then the children, then she loses her right of custody. Similarly, the grandmother, the mother's, let's say the wife got remarried. Now it moves next in line to the mother's mother, the grandmother. But the grandmother is still married to the grandfather. Now, yes, that is the grandfather. So you'd think she has the right of custody. But our scholars say the only people who have custody is a grandfather who is an heir. So generally, your grandfather from your mother's side is not an heir. He's not an heir. Your grandfather from your father's side is an heir. But your grandfather from your mother's side is not an heir. So therefore, if the grandmother is still married to the grandfather, then the grandmother will also lose her right of custody, and it will go to the father. She will lose her right of custody now. So if any of these conditions are not fulfilled, then there will be no custody that the mother or the father in that case will be entitled to. It will move to the next in line. The custody will move to the next in line. And that is, in a nutshell, the rulings of custody. This is if the child is still a minor. If the child reaches an age now, the child can now start doing things on his own, then the child will choose between the mother and the father. It will be the choice of the child. The child will say, no, I want to stay with mommy, or I want to stay with daddy. And we have to respect that. That is the right of the child from when the child is of age, right? 7 years old, 8 years old, 9 years old. The child knows, no, it's more beneficial to stay with mommy. It's more beneficial to stay with daddy, whatever the case may be. Then the child will choose if both parents have the right of, they meet the conditions of a custodian, of somebody who's able to look after the rights of the child. Barakallahu feekum. Unfortunately, that brings us to an end with regard to the time, and that also concludes the discussion on marriage and related matters. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us the tawfiq. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us harmony and happiness within marriages, and all those who are to marry, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant them good spouses that will benefit them in the dunya and in the akhirah. Until inshallah we will have mashura with Maulana in terms of when will the next class start and what will be the next topic, inshallah. And we will then make an announcement in time, inshallah. Wa sallallahu wa sallam ala sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi sahbihi ajma'in. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta nastaghfiruka wa atubu ilaik. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.